Hey, ladies and gents, welcome back. This is going to be part 1 to What If Luffy Was a Marine. Now, obviously, you're going to be looking at this new little editing style of mine, and you're going to be like, what the fuck is happening here? Because that's exactly what I'm thinking. So, I got this idea from What If Sensei because he kind of adopted a new style of editing too, and obviously I didn't go for the exact same thing, but I kind of just did this, and then I started laughing at it, so I decided I'd stick with it because it looks really dumb and weird at the same. I don't really know what it is. I I don't know. I have no idea what I was trying to do, but this is what I ended up with, so this is what I'm gonna do. So I really don't know why I find it so weird and funny to look at, but I don't know. It's like I feel like it's Sasuke. Like it probably would look better without Sasuke, but I left him there because that's like the most entertaining part of looking at it is like why is he there in the first place? Like he makes no sense of being there. It's like I don't know. Especially since this isn't even like a Naruto what if. It's a One Piece one. So what the heck is Sasuke doing there? So anyway, let's jump right into the what if. So obviously this is going to be what if Luffy was a Marine. So for this to happen, it's pretty much just going to be Shanks was never introduced at the village where they actually met, or he didn't convince Luffy to become a pirate, and Garp, with his constant bickering and telling Luffy that, yeah, you're going to become a Marine and you're going to pretty much fight for the good of the world. And so Luffy becomes a Marine, and he doesn't have a devil fruit. So, obviously, when he's going through his stuff as a kid, he still gets sent on all of these expeditions and different things by Garp. So he does his training, and he still gets sent out to where Ace and Sabo are. Now, this I don't think would actually change the perspective of Sabo or Ace. Still think that they would both go out to become their own pirates, and Sabo would leave and he would seemingly die, and Ace would also leave, leaving Luffy alone to pretty much contemplate whether or not he really did want to become a Marine. Now, obviously, since this is the title of the What If, he finally decides that, yeah, he's just gonna become a Marine, and even though he will have to face the consequences of maybe fighting Ace later on, because he still doesn't think Sabo is alive, so he doesn't think he's gonna have to fight him. So, when he actually starts doing the training to like join the Marines, he would rise through the ranks really quickly. Luffy is a lot more intelligent in this, and he's a ton, like, much, much more, like, obviously he's much stronger than any, like, average Marine. Like, at the beginning of the series, he was stronger than a Marine captain. So, he would obviously be really, really powerful and would rise through the ranks really quickly. So, by the time Luffy was a captain, he would get sent to the Grand Line. The Grand Line. But before he did that, he would have to gather, not necessarily like a pirate crew, but he needs like a crew to fight with him. So I feel like Nami and Zoro are like Zoro I feel like would have a slight chance of actually managing to join, because Luffy would probably get sent to that like Marine base after learning that the captain there is like corrupted, and Luffy shows up wearing his full Marine stuff, and he is literally just sailing on this little tiny ship alone, and he's searching for a crew that he can sail with. Obviously not like a pirate crew, but like a Marine crew, because every like Marine captain has like a crew. Like they probably don't usually select them like by themselves. They kind of just get like, here's all these weird fodder characters compared to everybody else. But I feel like since Garp is, or he's Garp's grandson, then whatever his name is, Fleet Admiral Sengoku would actually just be like, yeah, sure, whatever, do what you want, kid, have fun. So Luffy would end up going to this Marine base, and he'd learn that the captain there is like insanely corrupted, and he would actually confront him. And obviously, the Marine captain there, I believe he's like the guy with the axe hand. I believe he obviously wouldn't do, like, he wouldn't change his view of things, and he'd just pretty much think, oh, I'm just gonna kill this little runt in front of me. Just because he's a captain doesn't mean he's that strong. And Luffy uses armament hockey to block this attack. Yes, he has armament hockey, because if he doesn't have his devil fruit, he wouldn't, or he would probably use, or like be using like hockey and the, I don't remember what they're called, the six powers techniques. So Luffy would have a basic understanding of the powers techniques, but I feel like he would have a pretty good understanding of hockey, like where he was after the time skip, because that's pretty much what he focused on during all of his training. So now, most Marine captains, I will admit, don't have hockey, but again, Garp, like, he's Garp's grandson, and Luffy is, like, has a really, really powerful willpower, and that's kind of, like, what hockey is based off of. I'm not going to say he has access to Conqueror's hockey yet, because that is kind of, like, you can't really, well, you can't train to accomplish that. You need to be having the motivation to be the king of something, or something of that sort. And Luffy doesn't really have that motivation just yet, that of what he wants to actually do. So, he wouldn't actually be able to use Conqueror's hockey at this point yet. So, he finds out that this captain is insanely corrupted, and he pretty much takes him out. He now goes over to where Zoro is, and he's releasing him from his chains, or bonds, or the ropes that were pretty much holding him in place. And Zoro's pretty much just like, are you sure you want to do that? I might just kill you when I get out. Luffy just kind of laughs at him and says, like to see you try, but I do have a few spots open in my crew if you want to join. And Zoro's contemplating this, and he's like, a Marine captain who is like really strong and has understanding of hockey is inviting me to join his Marine crew. This could actually help me along my journey of becoming the world's greatest swordsman. So, after moments of hesitation, he actually decides that sure, why not? He's going to join this pirate crew. And he joins the Marine crew, not pirate crew. Yes, at least I caught my mistake instead of just being like, yeah, pirate crew, yeah, no. So he joins Luffy's Marine crew, and now there's two of them. And Zoro gets on the little ship that Luffy has and says, so where's the rest of your Marine crew at? Like, where's the rest of these little, like, fodder? Where's, like, the deckhands and all the different little people who, like, do all your little work? Luffy just looks at him, laughs, and says, oh, you're the first one. And Zoro at this gets a little bit worried, but he kind of just goes along with it, not really thinking too much of it, but he probably will later on. Like, obviously, Luffy's smarter, and he'd have pretty good navigational skills because he's the captain of a ship, and he's, using his own ships. And the Marines aren't that dumb. They wouldn't just be like, here's a ship, Luffy, have fun, go sail out to sea and go gather your crew. They would make sure he knew at least some basic understanding of navigation and, like, direction and where you're going, so he's much better than he or Zoro was in the original, so they'd actually be heading in a direction that they wanted to be. And Luffy was told of a infamous pirate named Buggy the Clown, so this is where they're heading next. So they obviously head over to where, this is actually where they meet Nami too. So, or they would have met Nami, but Luffy wasn't, like, in a barrel, so he probably wouldn't have met Alvida. Maybe he will on one of his journeys, but not yet, at least. So he goes and he finds where Buggy the Clown is resting. And he confronts him, not really worried too much, because obviously Buggy the Clown isn't, like, that much of a threat to Luffy at this point with his armament and observation hockey. Like, again, he doesn't have a devil fruit or anything, but he doesn't really need one. He's, like, really powerful. He's kind of like, you know how Sabo was before he got the Mera Meranomi? He's not at that point yet in strength, but he's pretty strong even without hockey. And I'm going to say he fights with a pipe, because that's what he fought with before, or not before he got his devil fruit, but when he didn't know how to use his devil fruit, he fought with a pipe. So I'm going to say he fights with a pipe, kind of like how Sabo does. It just feels natural. So he fights with this pipe, and he pretty much instantly wrecks Buggy. His observation hockey pretty much tells him that when Buggy split, he didn't take him down. And he uses his observation hockey when Buggy's about to stab him from behind and dodges out of the way of this and now grabs his hand and squeezes it really tight. And he breaks Buggy's hand. The dagger falls out of Buggy's hand and he now is like, what did you just do? How did you know I was about to kill you? And now Luffy appears in front of Buggy and pretty much just wrecks him. He kills him. He kills him and claims the bounty on his head. And this is where Nami shows up. She's like pretty much trying to hustle getting the reward on Buggy's head. So she's like, yeah, I'll join you. I'm a good navigator. I can help you with this. And Luffy obviously is a decent navigator, but he's nowhere near as good as Nami is. So he's like, oh, sure, whatever. You don't seem to be a bad person. You don't seem to be trying to hustle the money out of me. Yeah, definitely not trying to do that at all. So they continue on their journey. And this is where Luffy decides it's time that he and his two crewmates, or what he thinks are two crewmates, it's pretty much just one at this point, need to stock up on some food. So they go to the bar TA, I think is how you pronounce it. I think. So this is where they meet Sanji. And everything goes pretty similarly up until where Don Krieg actually, like, shows up. And he actually, where after he gets his food, this is where things start to change a little bit. Because when he stands up and he's just like saying stuff like, oh, I'm the strongest, I'm the greatest, everybody leave, I'm taking this ship. And Luffy now stands up, his marine captain cape flowing, and he uses armament hockey on both of his arms, and he now just slowly walks up to Don Krieg. Craig? I think it's just Craig, but it might be like Krieg or something weird like that. So he slowly walks up to him, and Don just kind of looks down and is just like, hey, what do you want, runt? He doesn't actually see that Luffy's using armament, nor would he actually know what that is, because he just thinks he's like the best. He's the best man around. And Luffy now looks up, and Don Krieg just pretty much tells him, he's like, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you can't do anything to me. Even if you were relatively strong, this armor of mine, you couldn't break through it, no matter how hard you tried. And Luffy now just kind of picks up his finger and does a 1-inch punch, shattering all of the armor. Don, now looking down, feels immense amounts of fear. And he now he stumbles backwards, almost falling down, and he's like, we're just gonna leave now, and we won't come back. I'm okay." And Luffy now jumps forward, knocking Don Krieg out in one hit. Everybody there was astonished, including Sanji, who still wanted to have his ambition of going out and finding the All Blue. But he also knew he couldn't do it just staying on the ship in the East Blue. But he didn't want to just leave the ship and all the cooks and Red Leg Zeph, or I think it's Red Leg, I don't know, Zeph, but all of the other cooks pretty much, all the other cooks pretty much just like hammered it into Sanji that he had to leave with these people. So now, after a very emotional scene, Sanji ends up leaving with the rest of the crew. Now, this didn't really give a chance for Nami to leave during the chaos, because there wasn't any chaos. Luffy kind of just one-hit KO'd him, and they got back on the ship. Nami's even now more excited. These people pretty much just gave her two of like the highest bounties in the East Blue. And this could even be a way for her to take out Arlong, because now that she's thinking about it, these people are really, like, or most of them, some of them are nice. Let's not talk about Zoro. But Luffy's really nice, and he's actually pure-hearted. And he might even have the strength to take on Arlong. So, thinking that even though she might get money out of it, she's just like, even if they can't defeat Arlong, I can just say I brought him with because I'm using him to get money. And then she, like, would be like, oh yeah, and they captured these two pirates. No, I would probably be up to 100 million berry. And she's getting really excited by this, and Luffy notices this, and he pretty much says, like, hey, what's something wrong, Nami? Why are you so happy? Well, not like that, but he's like, hey, Nami, what's up? And Nami's just like, I was thinking, you guys should come to my hometown with me. And Luffy's like, okay, sure, why not? You have anything you need? Do you have something you need to do there or something? And Nami's like, kind of, but I'll explain that when we get there. And Luffy kind of just shrugs it off, not really thinking much of it, because he trusts Nami at this point. Now, Luffy would not actually have his straw hat like I have in the picture there, but, yeah, he just doesn't have a straw hat, because he never met Shanks, so Shanks would still have his straw hat, probably not picking a pupil or pupil? I don't even know what you'd consider that. He hadn't chosen anyone to give his straw hat to, just kind of like how Goldie Roger didn't, or had Shanks to give it to. So, he would still have his hat, unless he gave it to, like, Ace or Sabo or something like that, but obviously he wouldn't give it to Sabo, who lost his memory. He could give it to Ace, but Ace is still just in the Whitebeard Pirates, so I don't think he'd give it to Ace. Although, he could have given it to Ace before, like, actually no, Ace went to visit him in the ice cave because he didn't, why would have Ace gone there if Luffy wasn't, like, going out to be a pirate and had his, like, first bounty and stuff like that? I think that's why he went there, but he wouldn't go there if it wasn't for Luffy having his whole different story thing. So Luffy is a Marine, he's never met him, Ace wouldn't go there, so Ace probably wouldn't ever meet Shanks on, like, unless it was, like, in a battlefield somewhere, but I doubt that would happen either way. And so, I forgot where I was going with this, man. I went way too far into that little tangent I had just gone on. So, okay, I remembered. So Nami is pretty much convincing Luffy that they're going to go to this home island of hers, because that's definitely what it is. I mean, she's not lying, technically, I guess. So, they end up going to Arlong Park. And Luffy's standing in front of it, and he's actually heard of this place. He's like, isn't this where... And this is where the door busts open and Arlong steps out, and he's just like, "Oh, Nami!" You like my voice? I think it's pretty spot on. And he's like, "Oh, Nami, what you got today, my navigator?" And he now looks to these other people standing in front of him, noting that the person, obviously in the lead, was wearing a Marine captain's outfit, robe thing. I don't know what you'd consider it, but he's wearing that, and he's just like, "Nami, what have you brought with me today, or brought for me today?" And Nami's just like, "Oh, I have brought the bounties of a few other people so I can buy away the village." And Luffy's now like, "Oh, this is the first I'm hearing of this," but he notices that Nami isn't telling the full truth. Her voice is kind of like, her voice is breaking. Like, Nami's a good liar, but Luffy notices this. And he now realizes what's happening here. Arlong is pretty much controlling her, Arlong is controlling her, and she can't do anything about it. And Luffy now looks at Arlong, even because, again, Luffy's really pretty smart in this, so he'd probably be able to pick up on these little drops of evidence that something bad is going on, and he knows that Arlong has a high bounty and he's a pirate, so even if he's wrong in this, he pretty much just took out a high-level pirate. So he's about to go face Arlong when Nami stops him, now having a little bit of doubt of whether or not Luffy could actually defeat him or not. Because now she's starting to gain a little bit of respect and friendship for these people that she's been traveling with. And she pretty much tells Arlong that she'll be back, and she takes the other three out and pretty much, like, tells them the entire story of what's going on. And now Luffy and everybody else is just pissed. And they tell Nami to stay there. And they go off, and they're about to pretty much finish off Arlong. And this is another thing. I don't think they'd ever go to the one island where Usopp is, so Usopp's just kind of gone. Usopp's just not there. So they go to where Arlong is after Nami explained everything, and Luffy slams through the door just like he does in the original, except with much greater ease. And now, knowing exactly who Arlong is, he walks straight up to him and says, "You can't use my navigator." And, or, he does that type of thing. And then he uses armament hockey on his arm and does this similar scene where he smashes him in the face and plows him against a wall. That sounds oddly sexual, but it's not. So he does that, and now Arlong felt a much greater impact than he did in the original. This impact was almost great enough to knock him out. It wasn't enough, though, and he now stands up, and he instantly realizes the strength of this person standing in front of him. And instantly trying to go for a kill shot surprise attack, he wants to not have to face this person because obviously Luffy's really, really powerful. So now Luffy would step forward and he would pretty much deal the finishing blow to Arlong in mere moments, easily defeating him with pretty much no effort whatsoever. So now they take Arlong's head, or not Arlong's head, but they take Arlong along with them as well. And now they are pretty rich because all of them together have a really high bounty. Like, I don't remember the exact bounties, but I'm pretty sure almost all of them were above 10 million. So I'm going to say they have 15 million bounty now once they go cash out. And so they leave. And now Luffy decides that it's time that he got a bigger ship because he's going to need a bigger and better ship because he's gaining crewmates as he goes. So, and obviously without stealing a ship because he's not a pirate, so he wouldn't he knows the laws. He wouldn't just go like, "Oh, this is a nice ship. I'm going to take it." So Luffy doesn't do that anymore. So he goes to one of the nearest islands, and he pretty much just kind of buys a ship with the new money he's made. Not all of it, but he uses a sum of his money to buy a new ship. And now that they have a new ship, they sail the seas a lot easier. So that's where I'm going to leave this part off. I'll see you guys in the next part. Let me know what you think in the comments about this weird editing style. I don't know what I'm doing with it still. So, okay, peace out. Bye.